feel very called to become a member of the Catholic Church.
Love the Catholic Church. It's just the best place to be.
From the studios of EWTN, this is Open Line. In North America, call toll-free 1-800-585-9396. That's 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985. You can also send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
A fabulous Tuesday to each and every one of you. Thanks so much for taking some time out of the middle of your week to join us on EWTN's Open Line Tuesday. It's Pro-Life Day here Tuesdays on Open Line. Barbara McGuigan is in the house. If you've got a question or comment for Barbara, the number's 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America. 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and Canada, your number is 1-205-271-2985. That's 1-205-271-2985. Or you can send an email, openline@ewtn.com. I'm Jack Williams. The lovely and talented Elena Rodriguez back in the house producing the program today. And your call screener is Mr. Matt Gubensky. Our host, as she is every Tuesday, our very own pro-life warrior, here with your surgically repaired foot update, is Barbara McGuigan. Barbara, how are you doing?
You know what? I'm limping along just fine. I'm too blessed to be stressed.
Have we kicked the scooter to the curb?
Oh, yes. That was kicked a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So, yeah, the scooter's kicked to the
All right, let me ask you this.
Yes.
Answer honestly.
Okay.
Were you on the scooter the prescribed amount of time?
Honestly,
I'll take that as a no.
Honestly, no. Really, it was more dangerous. It was more dangerous than trying to walk.
Your scooter license was being revoked? Is that
It would have been. My husband would have revoked it very quickly.
Well, we're glad you're feeling better, and
can
we wear normal footwear yet, or are we still a ways off from that?
Not yet. It gets really swollen. It's unfortunate, so I still can't wear shoes. But anyway, it's summer, so thanks be to God. What did Terry Barber just tell me? Too anointed to be disappointed.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Toll-free anywhere in the United States and Canada. Couple lines open right now at 1-800-585-9396. We got a vote coming up here in the United States Legislature pretty soon, Barbara, that I know you wanted to talk about. I think it's tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Actually, yes, it is tomorrow, and it's so important. Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, of course, announced that tomorrow, July 13th, the House will vote on the Conscience Protection Act, which is S304, or they refer to it as CPA, the Conscience Protection Act, to stop government discrimination against pro-lifers who object to being forced to participate in abortion. So we urge you to call your representative to vote yes. And you know what? I did this yesterday. It took me all of 2 minutes to do this. It was very, very simple. And I would love for our listeners to get a paper and pen, and I'll give them a few minutes while I just mention this a bit more. Because, and this is why this Conscience Protection Act was brought before Congress, thanks to Cardinal Dolan and Archbishop William Laurie. They are the two who kept calling on the House of Representatives to enact a bill like this, because after 3 recent examples of the government failing to protect the rights of conscientious objection, we're talking doctors and nurses who are now, because they are completely ignoring this Weldon Act that was put into place to cover this, but they're ignoring it, the administration and the states, and some of the states. So the problem is they had to do something like this because they're telling doctors and nurses that they must be involved in performing abortions or providing abortions on site as part of the maternity care that they're doing. So, how can you ask somebody, no one who believes that abortion is wrong should ever be forced to participate in the killing of an innocent, tiny fellow human being. So that's what this is all about. So let me just tell you, I hope by now you have a pen and paper. You call the Capitol switchboard. Very easy. Here's the number, 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. You press 2 for the U.S. House. Then they will ask you to enter your zip code, and it will connect you to all of your representatives. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 in the House, whatever it is. I chose to go with Darrell Issa. I could have gone with one closer to me, but it was okay to go with him. And after you identify yourself, a person comes on the phone. It's kind of amazing. You would think this would all be done, robotically, but it's not. And then you tell the staffer that you are a constituent, and you say, please tell Representative, in my case it was Darrell Issa, to vote yes tomorrow on the Conscience Protection Act. She wrote down every word I said. It was amazing. And, so it's important that we do this. It's so important that this passes because,
And this is by no stretch done deal at this point.
No.
Matter of fact, I've heard of some prominent Republicans that may be hinting that they're not going to vote the way we would think that they ought to. So these phone calls are probably more important than they've ever been.
Well, I do believe you're right, Jack. I really do believe it because we're up against it. It's I can't see it getting too much better, but it could. God could work a miracle. We could get a new Supreme Court, a few more justices to make it fair, and yes, it might. It might.
So once again, the Capitol switchboard number 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Press 2 for the House of Representatives. Enter your zip code and tell them to vote yes on the Conscience Protection Act. We're just getting started on an open line Tuesday. Barbara McGuigan is in the house. The number's 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America. 1-800-585-9396. Open line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan.
From EWTN News Nightly in Washington, D.C., I'm Brian Patrick with your EWTN News Link. President Obama travels to Dallas today, a city in mourning over the shooting deaths of 5 police officers. He'll address an interfaith memorial service along with former President George W. Bush, who lives in the Dallas area. Bernie Sanders finally publicly backing Democratic rival Hillary Clinton. The two appeared together in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Today's endorsement comes after weeks of negotiations between the Clinton and Sanders campaigns. A local official says the death toll in a head-on train crash in southern Italy is now 20. Rescue operations are continuing. An appeal has gone out for blood donations to help treat the many injured. And the Vatican dismisses what some understood to be an invitation from Cardinal Robert Sarah to all priests to celebrate Mass ad Orientem, facing east away from the congregation. A Vatican communique says the Cardinal's words were misinterpreted. I'm Brian Patrick with your EWTN News Link. Join us tonight for EWTN News Nightly.
Podcasts of Open Line are available within 24 hours of live broadcast. Go to EWTN.com and click on Multimedia.
Hello, this is Bishop Ronald Gaynor of the Diocese of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
This is Michael Warsaw, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of EWTN.
This is Father Mitch Pacwa. Thanks for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Couple of lines open for you right now. These phone lines should be full. All the things that are going on in our culture right now in an election year here in the United States of America, we want to hear from you at 1-800-585-9396, toll-free anywhere in North America. or you can send us an email, openline@EWTN.com. To the phones we go. Our leadoff hitter today is Greg in Coldwater, Michigan, listening to EWTN on Holy Family Radio. Greg, thanks for holding. You're on with Barbara.
Hi, Greg.
Yeah, hi. Hello.
How can we help? Yes, sure.
So I had a question. I have a friend who she's taking birth control pills to, I guess, like she has had like out of control like menstrual cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So she's taking these as a form of, hormone regulation as opposed to the contraceptive view of these birth control pills. And I guess, how do I continue this dialogue of just, knowing that birth control is intrinsically evil, and, there's not really an exception to that?
Well, there would be an exception, in the case of, if a doctor prescribed in the case of endometriosis for a nun in a convent, for example, okay? Her purpose is to try to avoid the endometriosis every month, which is very painful, and her goal, of course, is not to contracept. But the doctors that I know, the pro-life doctors that I know, would not consider recommending, because of all the dangers of the birth control pill and the cancer-causing mechanism in risk, I should say, in the birth control pill. So, but a lot of doctors aren't aware of some of the things that our pro-life doctors, our NAPRO technology doctors are very much aware of. But there is a regimen for menstrual cramps and menstrual bleeding, heavy bleeding, that I know my good buddy Dr. Kallenborn. I would suggest you go to Dr. Kallenborn at Verizon.net. If you have any trouble, sometimes these things change.
Spell that name, Barbara.
Kallenborn. Kallenborn at Verizon.net. And he has a regimen that effectively treats menstrual cramps and bleeding 90% of the time. Because you see, you can take the pills and they will, basically stop your cycles to a degree. But then you're going to run the risk of the dangers involved in the pill, even if you're not using it for contraceptive reasons. And then you go off of it and the same problem comes back. So you want to heal the problem. Dr. Hilgers is another one who would be great to contact too. But first, I would try this. He actually has a formula. Take 800 milligrams of magnesium starting 7 days prior to your period, and then the last day of your period. Take 1,000 milligrams of calcium. Take 3 to 4 Advil, which with meals starting on the first day, and if you're not sexually active, start them 3 to 4 days prior. I mean, so there's a whole regimen that you can do to avoid such pain. Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for calling the show, too.
Thanks, Greg.
Yep.
Appreciate the phone call. That frees up a line for you at 1-800-585-9396, toll-free anywhere in North America, 1-800-585-9396. And, Barbara, we've got a cardinal in South Africa, or in the South African nation of Durban, who's in the news recently, and I know you wanted to talk about that.
Well, I did, because he questioned the need of another South African cardinal who believed that Catholics and Christians need to apologize for a bias towards homosexuals. So Cardinal Wilfred Fox Napier of Durban, as you said, suggested an apology should be made to black women in the United States, where abortions are being committed on that part of the population at such alarming rates, you could call it genocide. Now, this isn't the first time, but we haven't talked about this for a long time on Open Line. But it made me think, because of the news, the terrible news, the lawlessness in the news, the anarchy in the news, it made me think of Black Lives Matter. Because I wonder, Jack, if they even know about this genocide. Or if they do know, does their agenda that they have supersede the the killing of their precious little babies in the womb? Doesn't it bother them that almost half of their population has been aborted? Or, is it just something they take off their radar? Because then I found out that they actually announced their solidarity, Black Lives Matters, recently with the pro-abortion movement. I was doing my research. So it can only be attributed to pathetic ignorance on this matter. We can't know everything. I don't mean to, that doesn't, mean to be a slight in any way. We can all be pathetically ignorant about things. But Margaret Sanger, okay, the foundress of Planned Parenthood, believed, and this is her quote, letting the poor keep breeding just perpetuates bad genes. She described charity, Jack, as cruel because it encourages poor, unfit people to have more children. She was a eugenicist, and her whole goal was to weed out the unfit. And when I read a couple days ago that she wrote in 1925 about the poor and minorities, their lives are hopeless repetitions. All they have said has been said before. All they have done has been done before. Such human weeds clog up the path, drain up the energies and the resources of this little earth. We must clear the way for a better world. We must cultivate our garden. End quote. That was Margaret Sanger. I mean, I read this, I thought you can just see the sweet poison dripping from her lips as she says this, the foundress of Planned Parenthood. So this is precisely, if you put all this together, if you are open to the truth, if your mind is not so open it has holes in it, but you're open to what is good, true, and holy, this is precisely the clientele that the abortion giant Planned Parenthood serves, the poor and minority women. But then I also was made aware of this. African American women poll more pro-life than white women. But even though they do, they are 5 times more likely to have abortions. They make up 13% of the population, but have 30% of the abortions. So when you think about it, more than 16 million black babies have been aborted since 1973. And in New York City, there are more black babies aborted than are born. So, as Reverend Childress says, blackgenocide.org, if you want to look this up, the most dangerous place for an African American is in the womb. And he believes, as I agree with him, abortion is the greatest deception that has plagued the black church since Lucifer himself.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. 1-800-585-9396. That's the number Denise used in the great state of North Dakota. She's listening to EWTN on Real Presence Radio. Denise, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, Barbara. I just wanted to make a comment in regard to the person who was calling in earlier about the contraception.
Yes, sure.
Okay. My belief, and I think it's the church's belief, is that the contraception, no matter how you take it and what reasons you take it for, is still an abortifacient. Whether you take it because you feel it's going to help your premenstrual cycle or your menstrual cycle, or whether it's because you want to have, you think, safe sex. But, I just wanted to make the comment that, our Lord teaches us that any type of contraception, no matter what you're taking it for, is not good and not life-giving.
Well,
so
if you're
I
putting your... Okay, and thank you, Denise. That's a good statement to a point. But what I'm saying is if your purpose, if your motive for taking it is to prevent life, that is a serious sin. There's no question about it. A nun in a convent who has endometriosis is not using it to prevent life. It's still not a good idea. You know, and I'm not a doctor, but I know enough pro-life doctors. And I know Dr. Kallenborn, too. And there are other remedies. Dr. Hilders would give you another remedy than the birth control pill. That's for sure. But thanks for calling.
Thanks, Denise. Appreciate the phone call. 1-800-585-9396. Next stop, Detroit, Michigan. Maureen is listening to EWTN on Ave Maria Radio in Detroit. Maureen, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Maureen.
Hello, Barbara. And Jack. I have a personal experience, although my orientation to using contraceptives is different than your prior caller. I had severe hemorrhaging, and so it was recommended by my OBGYN that I take oral contraceptives without that week of placebos. So I did. This is like 15 years ago, so this is, in terms of what's available now, quite a bit ago. And what happened was I ended up getting a hysterectomy because they did not treat the underlying problem. They were treating the symptoms.
Amen.
And because of a massive family history of breast cancer, I couldn't take any hormone replacement of any kind. And so I ended up getting osteoporosis because the underlying condition was not treated. So I think the church is teaching that it's inherently evil is for a reason, the contraception. And I took it while I was not sexually active, so by definition, it could not be an abortifacient.
Oh, okay,
You know, but
yeah.
because if I'm not preventing conception, by definition, it's not an abortifacient. Abortifacient has to be operating in a manner to cause abortion.
Well, objectively, it's always an abortifacient, okay? If it's a birth control pill, I'm saying. If you're talking about another form of an IUD, well, that's an IUD works the same way. But I say you're talking about a condom or something like that. That is not an abortifacient, right? But yes, it has effects, side effects, and that's why it's a serious thing to consider putting one of those pills in your mouth. Even if it's not for a contraceptive purpose, which is the evil in it as well. Okay, so thank you, Maureen. I'm sorry about that. My goodness. Thank you for calling in.
Thanks, Maureen. God bless. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and Canada, we'd still love to hear from you. Your number is 1-205-271-2985, and we'll put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985, or you can send us an email, openline@EWTN.com. Barbara, give those resources one more time for folks that might be interested in exploring alternatives to what is so commonly prescribed by OBGYNs, especially in the United States, as far as oral contraceptions are concerned.
Okay, well,
contraceptives, rather, are concerned.
Sure. Well, Dr. Hilders, of course, okay, and that's the Pope Paul VI Institute. And then Dr. Kallenborn, KAHLENBORN, at Verizon.net. He was on The Good Fight with me almost 2 years ago now. But he gave a regimen for menstrual cramps and heavy menstrual bleeding. And, it's a whole regimen. And he said that it works 90% of the time. So it's something that is basically a natural method. Magnesium, calcium, Advil, take Pepcid AC. Also the days you take Advil. So he's a wonderful pro-life doctor, and he knows what he's talking about.
And I think that, Planned Parenthood is often associated with health care, and it's really, for the most part, anything but health care. Because when you think of a health care facility, you think of a place that you enter with your body not performing the way it's supposed to, and to have them restore your body to performing the way that it's supposed to. Yeah. 90% of the women, I think, that walk into a Planned Parenthood clinic, their bodies are working normally, and Planned Parenthood does things to keep their bodies from working the way they ought to. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. 1-800-585-9396 with your questions and comments for our pro-life warrior, Barbara McGuigan, on Open Line Tuesday.
Anna Mitchell here, inviting you to join me each weekday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time for the Sunrise Morning Show on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. You'll hear compelling interviews with interesting Catholics from around the country and the world, news from the Catholic perspective, plus reflections on the daily Mass readings, and much more. Weekday mornings, 6 a.m. Eastern.
The Sunrise Morning Show. Can't wait to start your day.
Raymond Arroyo with Mother Angelica, A Remarkable Life. In the year 1944, 21-year-old Rita Rizzo made her way from Canton, Ohio, and came here to St. Paul's Shrine in Cleveland. She entered this monastery and would become Sister Mary Angelica. The furnishings, the sense of reverence in this chapel would profoundly shape Sister Angelica's concept of a cloistered life. Nearly 60 years later, she would mimic many of the furnishings here when she built her own monastery in Hanceville, Alabama. Stay with EWTN as we celebrate the life and legacy of Mother Mary Angelica.
I invite people to listen to Women of Grace Live if they're interested in being informed, if they're interested in being inspired, if they're interested in being encouraged in their life of faith. I encourage people to listen to Women of Grace Live because we hear from a wide assortment of people whose questions oftentimes are the very questions that are going on. I'm Janet Benkovic, inviting you to join me weekday mornings at 11 Eastern for Women of Grace on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
Be sure to tune in tonight. Mother Angelica Live Classics. Mother will be talking about how we handle it when bad things happen. That's at 8 Eastern tonight on EWTN radio and television. Back to the phones we go. Tom is in Bay City, Michigan, listening to EWTN on Ave Maria Radio. Tom, thanks for holding. You're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Great, thanks. How can I help?
Well, I heard something on there that kind of upset me today.
Oh, okay. Good. What?
The statement that the most dangerous place for a black baby is in the womb is not true. The most dangerous place for a black baby is in the medicine cabinet or the bedroom where the birth control pills are held.
Ah.
And the reason I say that is there are 14 times more chemical abortions through the use of the birth control pill.
Of course.
Than surgical abortions. And Michigan Right to Life has taken a position that the birth control pill is okay. Let me explain that, if I may. The Michigan Right to Life and Lutherans for Life and other pro-life organizations on their bulletin boards and on their media will say that there are over 50 million abortions in this country. By saying that, they've taken a position that the birth control pill does not cause abortions, and it leads people to use them without, and many pastors, priests, churches, if you don't come out and say specifically the birth control pill causes abortions, and there's over 760 million abortions in this country, you've taken a position the birth control pill doesn't cause abortion. So if you use the numbers that Right to Life puts out, pro-abortion.
That's a hard line to take. That's a hard line to take, but I agree with you. What I believe is the right thing to say, and what I try to always say, is that there are roughly 60 million surgical abortions and roughly, according to Pharmacists for Life, 280 million chemical abortions. We basically wiped out almost the whole United States. Or no, it's even greater than that. It's like 300 and 25 million, something like that. The number changes all the time, obviously. But if you get on Pharmacists for Life website, you will see that figure because they have like a running, or used to have a running tab of it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But so then you wouldn't say the most dangerous place for an African American is in the womb. That's for anyone. The most dangerous place to be. It's the free fire zone. The womb is the free fire zone. You can kill your baby surgically or chemically. And this is precisely why Dr. Nathanson said that we would come to a point in our culture where you would not hear as much about surgical abortions, but they would be giving out Plan B, over the counter. I mean, he was a prophet, and he predicted all of these things. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate you calling and bringing that up because it's very important.
Next stop, the great state of Wisconsin. Nick is listening on the EWTN app in Wisconsin. Nick, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, thanks. As long as we're talking about contraception, I heard on Catholic radio one time a very interesting analysis of condoms, and everybody seems to think that, the condom is such a wonderful tool in that. And, there was a huge amount of criticism about the Holy Father in that because he didn't recommend condoms.
Yep.
Well, what I heard on this broadcast was that, AIDS is a virus, and that the AIDS virus was 450 times smaller than a human sperm. So
yes.
if I use a tennis court analogy, if the tennis court net is in perfect shape, it may be possible to stop a tennis ball. But if you were to go out in that same tennis court and take a handful of marbles, which I don't know if they're 450 times the size of a tennis ball, and cast them at the net, it wouldn't offer much protection at all.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, this whole idea of, safe sex, when that whole thing came up, I had to explode that every high school I went to, because I would maintain there's no such thing as safe sex for many reasons. But most importantly, there's no such thing as safe sin. Anytime we go against God's plan, there will be consequences, and sometimes they're very severe, and sometimes they're life-threatening consequences. But I know what you're saying, Nick. It's brilliant that you brought it up, and we haven't talked about this in a long time, but people don't understand that condoms have flaws or holes. And they're not poked into them intentionally by someone. It's the idea of the latex. So the average hole size is 5 microns, okay? A sperm is only 2.5 microns. An HIV virus that causes AIDS is only 0.1 micron. So in one test, 33%, 1/3 of the latex condoms leaked HIV-sized particles. I mean, how many? Does Planned Parenthood tell these kids this when they throw them at them? Hardly. So, if you look at the size of the hole in the condom, look at the size of the HIV virus, can the virus fit through the hole? Yes, it can. So it means using a condom does not protect you from AIDS or from pregnancy. It's just such a lie that has been perpetrated on these kids. Unbelievable lie. And at the end of the day, after I would have these kids for the entire school day, they would walk out not beaten down, bent and broken like a chain link fence. They were happy to know these facts. And we always had priests at all of my seminars to hear their confessions. How many youth ministers would try to get out of this and say to me, Barbara, you're not going to get 700 kids to go to confession. I said, no, I'm not, but God will. The Holy Spirit is moving. And sure enough, and my only request was when they were in the lines of the confessional all around the room, that they would please still listen. And only by the grace of God, you couldn't hear a pin drop. They want to know the truth. The truth is very satisfying to the soul. That's why they want it. Even though they came in there thinking, this woman doesn't know what she's talking about. It's not true. when you have the truth, it's satisfying to hear. Really and truly. So thank you, Nick. Thank you for bringing that up. God love you, good man. We haven't talked about that in a long time.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Still plenty of time for your phone calls. 1-800-585-9396. Next up is Andy in Bremerton, Washington, listening to EWTN on Sacred Heart Radio. Andy, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Andy.
Barbara, this is the first time I've actually gotten a hold of you. I mean, every time I've called, I've never gotten through. So, anyway,
Sorry about
I love
that.
hearing from you. I think you're a great warrior for the pro-life movement. My question is regarding Catholic politicians. Why is it that the hierarchy does basically just? I feel like they just sit on their hands and allow these politicians to spat untruths and evils, and it seems like there's no consequences. I know we don't excommunicate people from the church anymore. I understand that, but you have to live in cooperation and grace with the church, and a lot of these Catholics are still receiving communion, still going, and I just don't understand why the hierarchy just basically just doesn't really do anything as far as I can see. And a lot of Catholics that I talk to agree on the same thing. They say, why does the church just sit back and do this? It's not, essentially nothing to stop this heresy that's going on, and I was just curious what you thought about that. But keep doing what you're doing, and I really appreciate your show. Thank you.
Oh, God love you, Andy. All glory to God, of course. I hear you. I understand. It's unfortunate, but it's not all. Oh, my goodness, it's not all. I mean, you can't force. God can't even force someone to do something, And many of these people are, like I would always say to them, after you'd give them the truth about abortion, for example, and they would say, oh, I just don't agree with that. I just don't. And I would say to them, what are you trying to protect? What is it that you're trying to protect? Well, often it's their guilty conscience. See, this is why your heart goes out to people who, and we all remember a time in your life. Don't you remember a time in your life, Jack, when you just didn't want to hear the truth?
Oh, yes.
It wasn't convenient for you to hear the truth, and especially when you talk about contraception. Oh, my goodness. I would get nailed left and right by Catholics sitting right in front of me. Why? Because they never heard about it. They never read Humani Vitae. No one ever taught them this. So it's all about teaching, and I do believe that our priests that are coming out of our seminaries now might not have been that way 40 years ago, but it sure is now. These priests are just up to speed. I just had the academic dean on with the Good Fight with me last Saturday, Anthony Lillis, Dr. Anthony Lillis at St. John's Seminary. He's the academic dean. It was a phenomenal show. And all of these seminarians are getting his fire from above. That's the name of his book, but he's got it himself. We all should have it, every last one of us. Like St. Catherine of Siena said, if we were everything God wanted us to be, we'd set the world on fire. And that's what Jesus wants us to do. But it takes, I just heard David say, is that person in receive mode? Quoting a priest, is that person in receive mode? This culture keeps them out of receive mode, wouldn't you say, Jack?
To a large degree.
Sure, it's the culture. Right in my own family, for Pete's sake. Sometimes I'll walk in and my nieces will just walk out of the room because they don't, and I've never pinned them down. I've never pointed my finger at them. That never works. But they know what I do. And they know what I stand for, and they know how much I love the Lord. They know I was arrested for trying to save unborn babies and their mothers from abortion. They know I've gone that far. And so they just don't want to discuss it. And it's sad. It's sad. But we pray. So we pray. The most important thing.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. One line open for you at 1-800-585-9396. Barbara McGuigan, our pro-life warrior, is in the house on EWTN's Open Line Tuesday.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
So many feminists who want to be equal absolutely degrading themselves. That you want to be a priest, you want to be this, you want to be that, you want to be equal, and yet the media degrades your nature, your beauty as a woman, your your goodness. What are you doing to your soul? Huh? What are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? You're taking a beautiful body, a beautiful soul, and you're degrading it into the dust. Let us pray. At some point, our dear Lord touches their hearts.
Tomorrow on EWTN Radio's Open Line, Father Mitch Pacwa takes your calls about the Bible, the Church, and the writings of the Pope. 3 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Youth ministry has always been a top priority for the church. I devoted most of my life to it. John Paul II started a phenomenon called World Youth Day, a gathering of young people from around the world with the Pope. It's typically the largest event the Vatican offers the world. That's not just because of what we have to give young people. It's because of what young people have to give the church and the world when they open their hearts to God. Some of the greatest saints in the history of the church were teenagers. And those who weren't, it's only because they lived longer. Holiness plus youth equals unstoppable force. In the words of John Paul II, no difficulty, no fear is so great that it can suffocate the hope that springs eternal in the hearts of the young. The young are our hope.
This is Chris Stefanik. Complete coverage of World Youth Day 2016 from Krakow starts July 27th, only on EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
Be sure to keep it right here on many of these EWTN affiliated radio stations at 4 Eastern, 2 hours of Cresta in the afternoon. Al is still interviewing folks at the Napa Institute Conference this past weekend. Hour number 1, he'll talk to Father Charles Sikorsky. He'll talk about the Year of Mercy and Divine Mercy University. And then Rick Warren, mega pastor, is in the house to talk to Al in hour number 2. And then at 6 Eastern, Catholic Answers Live, open forum with Tim Staples, hour number 1, Jim Blackburn in hour number 2, all right here on EWTN Radio. Back to the phones we go. Leah is in the great state of Tennessee listening to EWTN Radio. Leah, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Barbara.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm just troubled. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and she has a boyfriend that she's been seeing for about 8 months, and it's a coworker. They work together, and she's at his place a lot, and I'm afraid that an opportunity would happen where she could get pregnant. She says she's not sexually active, and I was considering putting her on the birth control pill, but after listening to you, I feel that's not the right thing to do, and I just could use some advice.
Oh, God love you for calling, Leah. It's a hard thing. Oh, it's a hard thing when these kids get out the door. You wish you could just kind of chain them up until they're 24.
Yes.
Freeze dry them. That sounds better than chaining them up. Freeze dry them until when they're 10 until they're 24. Thaw them out. No, the thing is, God love her if she's sane. So you've given her good, solid training. She's saying that she is not sexually active. Okay, but here's the thing: she's putting herself in a serious occasion of sin. Does she know about that?
Yes, she does, and we've discussed that, and I'm against her spending so much time alone with him at his apartment. And
well, it's a sin.
Strong-willed. I cannot. She has a mind of her own.
I have one like that too. I know exactly what you're talking about. We could talk till the rapture. Let me tell you. Now, don't let everybody think I believe in the rapture. It's just a figure of speech. But I would just take her to lunch and just say, I'm so concerned about you. I'm concerned about your soul because you have kept yourself, you're 19 years old, and you've kept yourself in a pure state, which is so pleasing to God. You have great power because of your pure state before Almighty God. He honors that. You talk about the fact that for her to be in his company if she truly has strong feelings for him, is not the best thing for him either. If she thinks she's falling in love with this person, there's nothing wrong with that. But she wants to honor him. She does never want to put him in a position where he might put her at risk, too. They're both at risk. First of all, spiritually at risk. Is he Catholic like she?
He is, but he doesn't go to church, and he's not from here, but he was, I believe he's Catholic.
Oh, boy.
I've had them join us for church a couple of times. I ask every Sunday if he could join us. But
does he?
He only has done it a couple of times, but I have tried to encourage my daughter that they have to have that foundation, and if they're going to be married in the Catholic Church, because they talk about marriage, and she loves him that much. But
well, after 8 months, that's really not too much time, especially for a 19-year-old. Is she in school?
She was homeschooled, graduated, and now she's working, earning money, and thinking about what road she wants to go down.
What God's will is for her. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
Well, you've given her some beautiful teaching, Leah, and so many of our young 19-year-olds haven't gotten this noble art of spiritual formation. And obviously you homeschooled and you did it. But I'd sit her down and I'd tell her how much I love her and that you're very, very concerned for her and on every level, physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing. Because when you start playing with fire, you start to burn things down, and it's just not good. And it can happen to such a pure, innocent girl. So I'd pull out all the stops. I really would.
Where's Dad in all this, Leah?
Yeah, good job, Jack.
He's a pilot, and he's away a week at a time and home a week at a time. And he misses a lot in between there, which I am totally honest with him about everything that happens, and he's trying to just love her and, not, make it uncomfortable for her to come to him.
Oh, Jack, what would you say to that?
Well, Dad could get a whole lot of mileage out of 90 seconds of a hug and a kiss on the top of the head, when he is home, and make sure that he lets her know that he's proud of her. And just to put that image of Dad in her mind and in the forefront of her consciousness, I think goes a long way towards her attitudes when she's dealing with other young men.
Yeah, it's so true. If a father doesn't tell his daughter how much he loves her, the boy down the street will. And I guarantee you he doesn't have fatherly interests. But I would also tell her what your expectations are, that you have high expectations for her, because God has high expectations for her. That you need to have some good conversations with her. And also, I'm trying to think of this book that I'd love for her to read. Jason Everett has a great book, too.
Just without losing your soul.
Well, I'm sure that will enter into the book. I can't remember exactly. I wish I'm surrounded by thousands of books, honestly, and I can't. But look up Jason Everett. He's at Catholic Answers, I think, still. And look up his books and bring them to her. But you know what? I'd have a sit down with him, too, with your daughter and he as well. Lovingly. Poor guy, if he doesn't even care about going to church, what formation did he get? It's not his fault.
Exactly. And I don't want to take up your time on my call, but if I could just throw in one other thing. She had an eating disorder, anorexia nervosa. That's why she was homeschooled her high school years, self-harming, depression, all those things. And she's so vulnerable right now. She had no friends those years because she was just here with me. Yeah. And now she's just being bombarded with so much.
Yeah, that's for sure. She certainly is. And the culture can bring them down. I've seen it firsthand. So, but keep talking, keep praying, of course. Praying is the most important thing you can do. And tell her you're praying for a pure relationship between the two of them. And not to be at his house alone because she's putting him at risk. Not only him,
advice.
her too, but she if she loves him, she wants to do what's best for him, especially if he's already been brought down to the gutter. She doesn't want to bring him down again. That's a good approach, I think.
I have written down everything you said, and God bless you for all of this wonderful advice and for the advice for my husband as well. I appreciate both of you.
Well, God bless you, Leah, and know that you'll be in the prayers of all of our listeners as well.
Amen.
Thanks so much for your phone call. Next stop for us is Houston, Texas. Martin is in the great Republic of Texas, listening in Houston on Guadalupe Radio. Martin, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Martin.
Hi, Barbara. I know someday I'm going to be calling you Blessed Barbara.
Tell my husband that.
But my question, Barbara, is my my young niece and nephew, my niece is 21, and I'm both their sponsors. My niece had a baby out of wedlock. Thank God she kept this baby, which I feel I prayed. I say the rosary twice a day, so I know the Holy Mother gave me this baby. But she hasn't got it baptized yet. He was a year in June. But being her sponsor, don't you think I should approach her and tell her it's, in a loving way that it's my responsibility to be concerned about her eternal life?
Absolutely, Martin. Absolutely. And you give her that truth about baptism. You give her that truth with charity, of course, and that's all you need to do. Tell her that you have a responsibility before God to make sure that she understands about baptizing her baby. Does she practice the faith?
She has a wonderful, tender heart. She's a lot like me. That's why I've bonded with her. And I watched out because we both have ADHD. So when she was young, she got on a lot of the family's nerves because she was so hyper. Well, I embraced her, and we're real close. And she went to public schools, but both of her parents are wonderful in the faith, very active in the church, great examples. But like you were saying, you wish you could freeze dry them. I think I heard on here in Houston on the Guadalupe radio station, they said something like, even the kids that go to Catholic schools, 30% of Catholic kids, kind of leave their faith by the wayside for a while when they
do
get
that. They do that sometimes. Martin, we're running out of time. We're down to the last minute, but I'll pray for your situation, and you just give her, the Holy Spirit will give you the words to say. Don't worry a minute about that. He will give you the words to say. She has good parents. She's on her journey. Accompany her.
Thank you, Barbara, for being so gracious with your time.
You too, Jack.
On behalf of our hostess, Barbara McGuigan, our producer, Elena Rodriguez, call screener, Matt Gabensky, and social media manager, Jeff Burson. I'm Jack Williams. Thanks for tuning in. Back at it tomorrow with Father Mitch. Until then, God bless.